The Grand National at Blackpool Pleasure Beach is one of the very few traditional wooden roller coasters we have left in Europe, but in recent times, despite of the nostalgia attached to it, it has been subjected to more negative feedback than positive feedback. In this video, I'm going to be talking about why I think the Grand National is a classic wooden roller coaster that is worth saving without the need to convert it into a hybrid roller coaster, but also how I think it may be altered in the future. As a side note, this is the beginning of a new wave of individual ride review videos coming to Pleasure Beach Experience in the coming weeks and months. So, is the Grand National really that bad, or those of us who are critical of its current ride experience just going soft? I often read comments about how the Grand National has always been rough, which is part true. After all, it is a wooden roller coaster that was built in the 1930s, and I doubt anyone who worked on its construction would have expected it to be operational 90 years into the future of them building it. Roller coasters were designed and built by hand through to the 1990s, so it is a credit to Charles Page and his team that a roller coaster designed by hand on a site it was being built is still operational to this day. For sure, it has been maintained throughout those years, but there's no doubt in the excellence of the constructors who were able to build wooden roller coasters back in the day with no assistance from technology that is seen today to design new roller coasters. The Nash, as it's referred to by Blackpool Pleasure Beach fans, has definitely got rougher over the past few years. There's no doubt about that, and I think what contributes to that is the trains rather than the ride itself having bad track work or anything like that. The Grand National has been maintained to an incredibly high standard for nearly 100 years now. The Blackpool Pleasure Beach's maintenance teams take amazing care of their wooden roller coasters. Each winter, the Grand National is carefully inspected by the maintenance crew at the Pleasure Beach. When doing the close season updates for this channel in the past, it hasn't been uncommon to see a bunch of people up on the structure, either inspecting the track work, working on the track, replacing timber, or carrying out other work on the structure. It is the same for all of the wooden roller coasters at Blackpool Pleasure Beach, and they're a credit to the teams who have kept these coasters operational for over 80 years. Each wooden roller coaster track is walked every morning at Blackpool Pleasure Beach before testing begins on a normal day of Pleasure Beach's operational season. Without any doubt at all, the ride experience changed for the worse after the trains were changed in 2006. They were changed due to fire damage in 2004, reducing the Grand National's capacity from 4 trains to 2. There's more about that and the history of the Grand National in 2 recent history videos recorded for this channel. They'll both be linked in the video description. The current trains, or as I still refer to them as, the new trains, have a different lap bar setup compared to the previous trains, which definitely restricts the amount of space each guest has due to the individual lap bars, and the individual lap bars fall further down much quicker than the singular lap bars used to do on the previous trains, but it doesn't restrict airtime, it just makes the airtime uncomfortable. There's no doubt about it that the Grand National is still an airtime machine, but the bulky lap bars keep falling lower and lower every wheel turn of the way, so even if you are lucky enough to have some space with your lap bar when the train leaves the station, by the top of the lift hill it's usually firmly pressed on your lap. It has often been claimed that the current set of trains are too heavy for the ride. I think if that was true, the ride's structure would have been altered by this point. Conflicting stories to the trains are too heavy claim suggest when the current trains were ordered by the Pleasure Beach, they had to be designed differently by PTC compared to the standard train design that they offered, so that they could be a similar weight to the previous set of trains that were on the Grand National. Despite of my comments about the restriction of movement caused by the lap bar, the airtime moments on this roller coaster can still feel glorious at times, especially when lucky enough not to have the lap bar fall straight down on you as soon as the train leaves the station. The out of control feeling it has on the bends, the pops of airtime, and all the classic sounds of a wooden roller coaster are things to cherish about this traditional woodie at Blackpool Pleasure Beach. There's still a lot to love about the Grand National for roller coaster enthusiasts, and I can't even begin to think how many of us would regret not riding it more often if its permanent closure was announced today. I understand that the Grand National is a listed building, and that puts a stop to a snap decision of removal, but a listing building can be left untouched and unused, and that's why I'm not always a fan of listed rides, because in some cases it could lead to a listed ride anywhere in the world, not just Blackpool Pleasure Beach, being left as an SBNO attraction for say 5, 10 or even more years until a park has permission to move it on. This is only my opinion, but listing a ride just feels like stifling a park's future development, whether that be modifying the listed ride, making some essential changes to it, or even removing a beyond repair listed ride. I have never asked anyone at Blackpool Pleasure Beach what they think about some of their rides being listed, so this is solely my opinion on it and does not represent the opinion of anyone else. Despite of the negatives and my limited enjoyment of this coaster in recent times, for me, the Grand National is a roller coaster worth saving. I believe that because of the nostalgia attached to it, but also, have you seen the small footprint this roller coaster actually sits in? It is commonly wrote on any social media posts about the Woodies at Blackpool Pleasure Beach that they need an RMC conversion. For starters, I don't think any of them can be converted because of the work that would be required. I'll keep this brief because there's already an RMC Conversions at Blackpool Pleasure Beach video on this channel, but to highlight some of the key points made in that video, the Grand National is a twin-track roller coaster crammed into a small footprint. To RMC convert it, it would need major structural reinforcements to the wooden structure, which would expand the structure way beyond the current footprint of the ride. That then becomes a problem because of what's around the existing ride structure. There's access roads in and out of the park, and the park offices, workshops and so on, and on the other side there's a public road and a railway line. There's just not the space, in my opinion, to RMC the Grand National. Also, the Grand National is built into a sand base. When it was built, Blackpool Pleasure Beach was still very much a beach with rides on it. The Grand National, to my knowledge, has no concrete foundations. To convert it into an RMC, that would have to change to support the new weight added to the structure and, of course, the heavier trains it would require. So is it really a conversion if the existing ride is being taken down for new foundations and footers to go in, ready for a new structure to be built in its place? I'm confident that in the coming years, Blackpool Pleasure Beach will look to invest the time and money into a complete refurbishment of the Grand National, not only to reduce the roughness, but to prolong its lifespan and to keep it as one of the most popular attractions at the park. I have no insider knowledge when it comes to the future of the Grand National, but it has been evident over this close season that track work and structural work has been carried out on one of the corners. It is worth considering as well that there is major refurbishment projects currently ongoing on two attractions at Blackpool Pleasure Beach: the reimagining of Valhalla and, for the second close season running, retracking sections of the big one. Both projects will come with a high price, but are also considered to be essential work. At the time of making the decisions about which rides would undergo major refurbs, I'm sure all of the Woodies were re-inspected and considered, but none were in a situation where it was as essential as fixing up Valhalla or replacing the big one's track. Steel track doesn't always age as well as traditional wooden roller coasters age, and that has been a common situation when comparing the older Arrow rides to some of the wooden roller coasters out there. A lot of the Arrow rides have now been removed, but thankfully that has not been the case with the big one. Without completely losing track here, my point is that both projects will have taken large sums out of the maintenance budgets, but also fixing up 3 of the major attractions over one close season may have been a bit too much to ask. Without a lockdown situation, Blackpool Pleasure Beach's maintenance crew have a very short turnaround from November to February to get the whole park back in action in time for a new season. I for one would not complain about the prospect of the Grand National having a similar scenario to Valhalla, where it is closed for at least 1 full year whilst a full refurbishment is carried out. Whether that would be a full retrack by Blackpool Pleasure Beach's excellent maintenance teams who have kept rides like the Grand National, Big Dipper, Fly Machines and others serviceable well beyond 80 years, or whether that be a company like GCI who have in the past few years retracked the famous Cyclone roller coaster at Coney Island in New York. So to summarise, is the Grand National really that bad? It's a bit of a yes and no answer, because without doubt it has got rougher over the past 2 or 3 years, but having thought about it a lot, this is a roller coaster that's really worth saving. I have so many great memories of the Grand National for when I first started to go to Blackpool Pleasure Beach regularly as a coaster enthusiast back in years like 2004 onwards. I would be so sad to see it get removed or even converted into a hybrid coaster. I like RMCs a lot more than when I first experienced one, but not every roller coaster built by hand with wood needs to be converted into a hybrid roller coaster. Infrastructure looks to be the firm focus of Blackpool Pleasure Beach in the coming years, as we've seen with the previously mentioned Valhalla and Big One refurbishment projects, so I'm confident it'll only be a few years into the future when we're talking about an ongoing Grand National retrack, which is either being done in-house or by a wooden roller coaster manufacturer, or maybe a combination of both. Who knows? Well, probably Pleasure Beach do. How do you rate the Grand National? Is it as bad as it's made out to be by us coaster enthusiasts, or are we just getting too comfy with the idea of glass smooth roller coasters these days? Please share your thoughts about this video and the Grand National in the comments section below, as well as leaving a like if you've enjoyed the video. Many thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next Pleasure Beach Experience video.